Well, the gurus are saying to buy home service or HVAC, but most people don't have any home service experience or any HVAC experience. So we're going to take an HVAC business that we actually own, run it through our Fleming Deal Index. But what we're going to do is we're going to substitute, say, the average person for our buyer fit criteria versus the person that we actually partnered with to buy this business. So to run the average buyer that we see through our buyer fit for our deal score, the typical ETA buyer we see typically has a finance background. They often have an MBA, but not always. In many instances, they've never served in a sales or management role. While this certainly doesn't represent everyone, it is a very common criteria that we see from people that come to us, or that if we look at websites like Search Funder. Now, this buyer, they virtually never have an HVAC license or any HVAC experience. So out of our criteria that can be scored from 1 to 5, they're going to be a 1, as low as you can go. No experience in the industry, no experience sales, management, and they don't have the required license, automatic disqualifier. Now, our next criteria is our organizational structure. And this business we bought actually has a good organizational structure. It does have a general manager. So that can help a less experienced buyer. So you get a 5 out of 5. And actually, the GM has been a bit of an issue. Having a long established general manager with new owners can cause some tension, especially when the general manager doesn't really want to grow the business necessarily. They really just want things to just stay status quo versus a new owner coming in, taking on a big SBA loan. You really need the business to grow to give yourself some room to breathe. Now, looking at seasonality, almost all small businesses have some form of seasonality. This HVAC company is actually an evaporative cooling company in Arizona, so they are highly seasonal. They really have one season when they're on during the summer, and they're completely off during the winter. So for seasonality, we get a 2 out of 5 versus if you had an HVAC in Michigan, you might have more of a smoothed out pattern. Next, we're looking at customer concentration. We're primarily repair and replacement. We do virtually no new construction. So we have no real customer concentration. So we get a 5 out of 5. Looking at margins, our EBITDA margin, it's in the low 20s. The criteria for a 5 out of 5 is 20% or better. So we get a 5 out of 5 on the EBITDA margin. Our next criteria is longevity. How ingrained in the community is it? This business was over 20 years old, so that gets it a 5 out of 5. It's very well established. Now, looking at its valuation, this one it was a much lower valuation than your typical HVAC company. And that's really because it is evaporative cooling and you have a lot more seasonality than you would in a more traditional HVAC company. So we get a 4 out of 5 here because we paid a pretty low multiple. Looking at cyclicality, how sensitive is it to economic swings? We only really do repair and replacement. That can have some sensitivity to the economic cycle. People can try to push off repairs, but generally people are doing things because they have to, not because they want to. But for cyclicality, we're going to score a 5 out of 5. I could argue a 4 out of 5, but we're giving it a 5 out of 5. Next, we're looking at cash collection. Our time that it takes to collect and our time we need to pay is roughly neutral. So we have roughly a neutral cash collection cycle. For us, that's a 3 out of 5. It's neither good nor bad. So adding this score up, we've scored a 37, putting it right on borderline. We're below that 39 that we look for and right at the bottom of maybe you could think about it. But this deal's not going to happen because the typical buyer is not going to qualify for an SBA loan because they don't have an HVAC license. We take this deal, we put in the actual buyer that we bought with, who was a 4 out of 5. He had really good adjacent experience. This deal jumps to a 46, making it look like a pretty solid buy. Now, if you want to see how more businesses score, give us a follow, check out our profile. If you want to see how the deal that you're working on scores, check out the link in our bio and try the Fleming Deal Index.